done one study in your career, right? Can you tell us about the breakthrough that you had with that and the rest of your research?
Certainly. Thanks, Jody. And thank you all for being here. And for everybody at RootsTech, this has just been an amazing experience. And we're both so honored to be here. So what's often called the Emory study or the dinner time study, we had been doing some work on family storytelling, but we really became interested in how do families spontaneously tell stories, like just in everyday daily interaction. We know that human beings communicate through telling stories. We're all storytellers. So we simply tape recorded dinner time in a bunch of middle-class families, and we transcribed them. And we looked at what kinds of stories they were telling. And what we found is stories emerge all the time in conversation, every few minutes. And when stories come up, they're told by the whole family. The whole family, parents, children, and extended members of the family get involved in the telling of those stories.
Which is so interesting because both of us have found when we've done research that families will say, we don't have any family stories. We're not storytelling families. But you found that being a storytelling family is important. Can you talk more about that surprising finding?
Sure. So in looking at the kinds of stories that are told around an everyday Tuesday spaghetti dinner, we found that there are different kinds of family stories, not surprising. A lot of the stories are what have been called today I stories. So you're coming together at the end of the day and you talk about what happened during the day. So Jody, what happened at work today? Or you ask, your child, how was the math test? So you're weaving your lives back together. Those are really critical stories for creating family cohesion.
Yeah.
But we were actually surprised at the number of stories that emerged just over an everyday dinner time conversation that harkened back generations. So families would tell stories not just about their own shared past. Oh, that's like when we went to the beach last summer. But the parents would say, yeah, that's like when I was a little girl. Or that's like crazy Uncle Joe, remember? And when those stories came up, the children were just as interested in hearing and participating in those stories. We also found, and this was really our most surprising finding, all the stories matter. The families who tell these stories do better. Jody's going to talk more about that in her own research. But what we found is that the families who told more of these intergenerational stories, that really predicted better outcome in the kids, in the adolescents. Higher self-esteem, higher academic competence, lower depression, lower anxiety. So we really became interested in those intergenerational stories and how they really operate to build a sense of strength and resilience and identity in the younger generation.
So kids who knew their parents' stories tended to fare better than those who didn't in your research.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay, so from that, you and your colleague Marshall Duke from Emory developed a scale and set of questions called Do You Know?
The Do You Know scale, sometimes called the 20 questions.
Yeah, tell us about that.
And it's really a rough and ready index. It just bunch of yes, no, 20 yes, no questions. Do you know where your parents met? Do you know where your grandmother grew up? And the adolescent, the young adult just says yes or no. And it turns out that the more yeses predicts, again, all kinds of positive outcomes. Higher sense of identity, higher sense of autonomy, higher sense of family cohesion. But I think what's really important about that measure when we talk about it is for people to understand it's not knowing this fact or that fact. That's not what's important. What's important is that this is a marker. If you know these facts about your family, it's because you've heard the stories, right? So it's the family storytelling that's important. It's the process of engaging in all of those stories. And this is where I'm going to turn to you, Jody, because you know, we've certainly done some work on the process of telling those stories, but your work has really been critical in laying out these dimensions of how families tell stories.
Yeah, I love hearing about your research, and we've been doing research alongside each other over the years, and so it's really fun for us to be together. A couple important takeaways. So the studies that we've done with families have been in my research lab called Narrative Nebraska. We actually bring families in to tell stories together. And what we found are two really important things. One, how families frame stories matter and how families communicate stories matter. Because not all stories and not all storytelling are created equal. So what we found is that families who can frame their stories in positive, hopeful, resilient ways, even when they experience stress and the stories that they're telling are about stressful events, also tend to be higher on those markers of individual mental health and then also family satisfaction. And then near and dear to my heart as a communication researcher are these 4 dimensions that we found of how families verbally and non-verbally collaborate to tell stories together. So we found 4 behaviors that tend to distinguish families on measures of health and well-being, and they are engagement. So when families sit down to tell stories together, how warm and involved are they? Are they excited to be with one another? Or if they're supporting one another, are they reaching out, touching each other non-verbally? Are they involved? The second dimension is turn-taking. So do we build off of each other's stories? And do we give each other space to talk? So talk time. The most important of the dimensions we found in our research is communicated perspective taking, and I know that you found this too, that people who attend to ask for and then confirm each other's perspective, because let's face it, when we tell family stories, we've experienced the same thing, but often in very different ways. But if we say to each other, hey, how did you experience that? And, oh, really? I didn't see it that way, but I can see where you would. That's a very important marker of health. And then finally, coherence. How do we organize the story? And do we do that in a way that showcases family level meaning making as opposed to individual level meaning making?
Yes, and as you say, perspective taking is really critical. Even in the intergenerational narratives, what we're finding, when adolescents and young adults tell the stories that they know about their parents growing up or their grandparents' experiences, the ones who are able to tell it from the perspective of the parent. My mother was so angry when her mother wouldn't let her go to that party.
Yeah.
You know, those are the kids who are doing the absolute best on all our measures.
Yeah.
So this ability to create bridges across ways of seeing the world is really critical.
Yeah, and it's important right now in our world that we all learn to engage in better perspective taking. It's the thing that can connect us as we tell stories and as we communicate with one another. So I love that we've both found that in our work.
So we know from our work over the past 20 years, and certainly all the work that everybody in this audience has been doing, that the collection and archiving and telling and retelling of family stories is important. Family stories that are told in very intentional ways, like the work you're doing, or in just the everyday spontaneous conversations that families have over the dinner table, in the car. These kinds of stories are important. So Jody, what do we do with that? How do we help families?
Yeah. This is the thing that I'm most excited about in our research right now. So when I tell you that there are these 4 behaviors, engagement, turn-taking, perspective-taking, coherence, it's not like we can just easily stand up and teach these skills to families, but how we do that is through what researchers call intervention work. So we're doing what we call translational storytelling, applying the research that people like Robyn and others have done, and to building interventions, workshops, programming, tools to help families tell stories together and make sense of their family lives. So I'll just tell you about one intervention that I've been working on. It's called narrative connection, and it can be applied across multiple contexts. So it's one in which we've worked with families with cancer, parenting, women's retreats, mothering, grieving groups, but essentially we teach people to build trust through storytelling about family stories. And we also have them write stories, share those stories, and then we teach them compassionate witnessing, listening strategies. Because oftentimes what happens, for example, we ran a study with parents in COVID-19 who were really struggling with parenting. How many of you remember Zoom school or your kids running around while you were trying to work on Zoom during COVID? Anyone? It was hard. Parents were very stressed. So we ran groups of parents through this intervention called narrative parenting, an iteration of narrative connection. And what we found is when they were able to tell stories about parenting together and listen to each other's pain and difficulty by using these listening strategies, instead of not knowing what to say, which is what so many of us face, we could engage in storytelling and story listening that was really productive.
I think that's such important work to show that we really can help families become even better storytellers. But I think that you and I would agree that all families are storytellers. And often when we do these kinds of talks or workshops, families are always like, well, but what if I don't have stories? Or what if I have difficult or challenging stories? And I think it's important to underscore that it's just important to tell stories. We tell them all the time. Adolescents are listening. They're hearing them. We've done research with hundreds of adolescents. All of these kids know stories. They're hungry for these stories. And even when the stories are difficult, sometimes those are the most important stories to share. Because those are the stories, as you say, Jody, that build strength, that build resilience, that help us process deeply difficult things. So certainly we want the joyous stories. We want to share that joy, but we also want to share the tears.
And we need to make space to do that. And I think that that's the important thing about the intervention work, the applied work, is to create spaces in which people can tell their stories of difficulty, because one of the main functions of storytelling is connection and coping. And so to be able to do that and come together in community, our research has found that those parents in that study reported feeling so much less alone. That was one of the main benefits. They also had lower levels of anxiety, depression, higher levels of parenting self-confidence. And so we're going to take that into other realms. We're doing interventions with cancer patients and their families to give them an opportunity to make sense of this illness together as a family, but also to cope and grieve with one another, because life is so different. And so I think that's really important. My biggest dream is to create a center in which people can come together and retreat with one another, parents, families, so we can tell stories in community and make sense of things. Because one of the things that I found is really important is the research shows that when parents' mental health is better, children's mental health is better. And also, until we know our own stories, we can't parent as effectively than if we did not. And so I think that work's really important.
And I would go beyond even that. Until we understand and know our own story, and until we process our own story, we can't really compassionately listen to others' stories. And in today's world, that's one of the things we must be able to do. We must be able to learn how to listen to other people's stories compassionately and with empathy.
Yes.
And I think that for both of us, that's the ultimate goal of our work. To provide the empirical data for all of the work that you are doing to show how and why it matters that families who know their histories are families that are more coherent, healthier, both individually, they show better mental health, and as families, they show more strength and resilience.
Exactly.
So
we were talking about this yesterday, and we were thinking, what would the moral of our story be from all this collective research that we've done? And we decided we could agree on one thing. Stories connect us.
People.
Thank you. Go up this way.
So much, Robyn and Jody. That was amazing. Did you know that today's really the first day that they've met in person? That's so cool. That's what family history and this connection does. We have the pleasure now of welcoming 3 organizations to the stage, each here to share their impactful initiatives. First up, we have Lindsay Fulton. She is the Director of Research at American Ancestors. Next, we'll be joined by Jesson Brackenbury, CEO from the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island Foundation. Then, Jennifer Jacobs, CEO and co-founder of Connect Our Kids, will take our stage. So let's settle in and get prepared to be inspired. Our speakers have a wealth of knowledge and experience to share, and I have no doubt that today's discussions will leave a lasting impact. Please welcome the American Ancestors.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lindsay Fulton. I am the Chief Research Officer at American Ancestors. Among other activities at the organization, I love participating in and leading education programs, both for adults and for children. Therefore, I was honored a few years ago when Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr. asked me to work on a web series he produced called Finding Your Roots, The Seedlings. Inspired by his popular PBS series, Finding Your Roots with Henry Louis Gates Jr., and shot on the campus of Penn State University, Finding Your Roots, The Seedlings followed 13 young people in a genetics and genealogy camp as they explored their family history and DNA ancestry with techniques never before used in an education setting. The students spent a week together. They spent one day with me, where we discussed the ins and outs of family history research, and even tried to do some independent researching on their own families. One of the students, Jordan, had a particularly memorable experience. Before camp, he met with his family, and they started to fill out a family tree together. He took those notes with him as a starting point, and together, he and I did some searching.
It's challenging because you have to go through all these files just to find one person.
So, 10th of September 1925, Oscar Samuel.
And this is the father, Ernest Walker.
Yep. And then
Catherine Walker.
Yep. So, formerly Angus. So, this is her maiden name.
Okay.
So now we know when we're looking for a marriage record, we can look for a marriage record for Catherine. We now know who she's married to.
My dad's great-great-great-grandfather. And we just found the father's name and we had unknown for it. And now I can go ahead and actually change it now from unknown to the full name, and the name is Ernest Walker. This is the ancestor that I didn't really know who existed until now. I searched it up and found the result. It was like finding a big discovery. It was basically like finding the Titanic because you went so far back and you finally found a clue.
Now, thank you. Now, Jordan had a great result, and as you can see from the video, this was a really proud moment for him. Not just because he learned a name, but because he was able to participate in the process to actually find the name. Knowing stories about your family has an incredible and quantifiable impact on young people. But that positive impact doesn't come from the content of the answers. It's the process of learning those stories that results in the greatest personal growth. Therefore, doing genealogy holds untapped potential for students. Imagine the impact of making the power and promise of family history available to students in classrooms across the country. Based on the research from the Emory University study that Robyn just discussed, and my experience on the seedlings, American Ancestors has created a national family history curriculum for grades 4 through 8. It's important, however, to understand and acknowledge some of the challenges for students and educators when embarking on genealogical research. For many, the journey begins with what we call brick walls, those frustrating dead ends where information seems scarce or non-existent. Imagine the disappointment a student might feel when they hit these barriers, especially if they have limited knowledge of their family history to begin with. Furthermore, genealogy can unearth painful memories of family dynamics that students may not be prepared to confront. It's a deeply personal endeavor that can stir up complex emotions, from pride to discomfort and even distress. From an educator's standpoint, the challenges are equally daunting. Many teachers lack familiarity with genealogical research methods and may struggle to integrate into their curriculum effectively. Time constraints, especially in social studies classrooms, where genealogy is most likely to fit in, further compound the issue, leaving little room in an already packed schedule for exploring what are perceived to be niche subjects like family history. But despite these obstacles, there's reasons to be optimistic. As you just heard, research has shown that engaging in genealogy can yield significant psychological and emotional benefits for students. Delving into family history can boost self-esteem, resilience, and a sense of identity. Moreover, genealogy empowers students to actively participate in history, not just as passive learners, but as historians themselves. By investigating their roots, students develop critical thinking skills, learning to analyze sources and craft narratives that connect them to the past in meaningful ways. So how does our family history curriculum make genealogy accessible to all students? Well, we focus on 3 foundational strategies. First, we encourage students to start their research at home, just like we saw with Jordan. By tapping into their own family stories, photographs, and heirlooms, students can embark on a journey that feels familiar and manageable. This dinner table genealogy approach provides a gentle entry point into the research process, helping students build confidence and momentum. Second, we focus on developing research skills rather than fixating on specific family details. By emphasizing the process of inquiry, asking questions, evaluating sources, and drawing conclusions, we equip students with invaluable tools they can apply to any historical investigation, regardless of their personal background. Finally, we foster a supportive and inclusive learning environment where students feel safe to explore their family history at their own pace. Respect their boundaries and allow them to define what family means to them. By building trust and rapport with your students, you can navigate sensitive topics with compassion and with empathy. Since its launch over a year ago, our curriculum has garnered significant interest with 9,000 page views and 1,000 downloads by classroom teachers, home educators, librarians, genealogical societies, and genealogical societies across the country. The curriculum was adopted by the Maine State Department of Education, and next week we head to the US Virgin Islands, which recently passed a bill mandating US Virgin Island history be taught in the classroom, to provide a workshop for more than 30 educators. This exemplifies the growing demand for high-quality social studies curricula that help students develop critical research and thinking skills. So, if you are an educator, I encourage you to visit our website to download the family history curriculum. We are also happy to offer K-12 schools free access to American ancestors. There is a form to complete on the page if you are a classroom teacher, administrator, or school librarian. And if you have young family historians in your life, please encourage them to participate in our American Ancestors Young Family Historians Essay Contest, which is open for students enrolled in grades 4 through 12 in public, private, parochial, and home schools across the nation and US territories. This year's contest invites students to share a story from their personal family history and to explain how lessons from that story can apply to their life today. Genealogy has the power to unlock a treasure trove of learning opportunities for students of all backgrounds. By overcoming the challenges and embracing the potential of this rich field of study, we can empower students to connect with their past, understand their present, and shape their future. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jesse Brackenbury. I am the president and CEO of the Statue of Liberty Ellis Island Foundation. And our nonprofit got its start 40 years ago when President Ronald Reagan asked Chrysler CEO Lee Iacocca to lead the private sector effort to restore the statue and Ellis Island in time for their centennial. The American people stepped forward, and our foundation led the effort in partnership with the National Park Service to do that restoration. You see the scaffolding for the Statue of Liberty, and we restored it. We replaced the original torch with one that matched Laboulaye's original design, gilded in gold, and threw a big party. The President of the United States came, the President of France came. We broadcast this worldwide for Lady Liberty's 100th birthday. We also worked on restoring Ellis Island. Ellis Island, as you probably all know, is the country's first federal immigration station. And from 1892 to 1954, 12 million immigrants were welcomed to our shores. This is a picture of the Great Hall, not looking so great. After Ellis Island closed in 1954, the federal government tried to sell it as surplus property. Thankfully, that didn't happen. But for the next 30 years, it deteriorated until it looked like this. Through the restoration, we brought the Great Hall back to being great. This is the historic registry room where everyone was processed. And when we opened this museum in 1990, since then, more than 50 million people have visited the museum. We also, at the same time, constructed the American Immigrant Wall of Honor, where in one of the only places in a national park or monument you can recognize a family member. We're coming up on 1 million people who have inscribed an immigrant's name or a family member's name on this wall to honor them. Our next project was done in partnership with Family Search. And so in 2001, we opened in the Ellis Island Museum the American Family Immigration History Center. And this project helped spark interest in genealogy worldwide. With Family Search's help, we scanned all of the Ellis Island arrival records. And as you have been hearing about, and as you know well yourselves, that process of finding a family member is so powerful. It is particularly powerful after you have walked through the halls of Ellis Island and walked in the footsteps of an ancestor, with those walls vibrating with history. And then you sit down and you have the chance to find the person who came before, who walked those same places, whose ferry docked in the same place that your ferry just did. We have continued to celebrate family heritage with our awards. Here are a few of the awardees. That's Gloria and Emilio Estefan, Oprah, Diane von Furstenberg, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and many others. Our work with the National Park Service has continued. In the aftermath of 2 tragedies in New York that closed the islands, 9/11 and the damage from Hurricane Sandy, we assisted in getting the islands back open to the public. And our most recent project was the construction of a brand new museum on Liberty Island. This museum houses the original torch that was replaced in that 80s restoration. It has an incredible immersive theater with a film we partnered with Disney on to tell the story of Lady Liberty, both her history and the symbolism and meaning today. And it has these spectacular views out over the Manhattan skyline and to the Statue of Liberty. The museum and the audio tour are all free with your ferry ticket. This opened in just 2019, so if you haven't been, I consider this a personal invitation to come. It's an incredible experience. This 40 years of history has our foundation's partnership with the National Park Service as one of the country's most successful public-private partnership, and our partnership with Family Search as a long, terrific partnership that also has worked so, so well. So let me give you a little taste of what we are up to next. So, from the focus on Liberty Island back to Ellis Island, we are planning now for the biggest project on Ellis Island since the original restoration. So this museum is one of the most important in the country. Partly that is, it's one of the most visited museums in the whole country. We get several million visitors each year. It's also important because it tells a story of who we are, because it talks about where we came from. And so this museum, which was groundbreaking when it opened more than 30 years ago, now feels as powerful as it is in places like a 30-year-old museum. And so we are embarking on an effort to reimagine that museum to capture today's visitors. And so there are places where instead of text on the walls, we will be able to add film and interactives and so on to change the experience and capture particularly a younger generation and engage them in this storytelling. One of the particular elements, and this is a deepening of our partnership with Family Search, is that Ellis Island database that we created almost 25 years ago. We are expanding that so that it will be not just arrival records for the Port of New York, but all arrival records that have been digitized, so that that powerful experience can now be not just for some of our visitors, but for all Americans. Incredibly, 40%, thank you. 40% of Americans can trace an ancestor to someone who came through Ellis Island, which is pretty incredible. It also means that 60% can't. And so for all of those visitors, we want to have a museum that they can find themselves in and a database that they can find their families in, both free online and available within that powerful historic main immigration building. We will be talking much more about this project in the months to come. And so if you are interested in learning more about the work of the foundation and our public-private partnership, if you're interested in that American Immigration Wall of Honor, please follow us here. And thank you so much.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Jennifer Jacobs, CEO and co-founder of Connect Our Kids. I'm an Army veteran, a nuclear engineer, and a physicist by training. I've spent most of my career working to counter nuclear terrorism. But 13 years ago, I read a Time magazine article about foster care, and I noticed a similarity in what foster care professionals needed to do to find families for the kids in their care, and what intelligence analysts do to find and track terrorist networks. It turned out, though, that while the national security space has multi-million-dollar infrastructure with advanced data search and management software, the foster care space has Post-it notes and Microsoft Excel. Youth who age out of care without any family face a difficult future. By age 26, over 80% have been incarcerated, homeless, victimized, or they are dead. So the status quo is not acceptable. This led me to co-found Connect Our Kids 7 years ago. Our tools were inspired by that national security software, but are designed by and for child welfare professionals to help keep kids connected to their people. Our tools are an interactive hub to help social workers uncover the family and connections a child already has. Sadly, the processes and procedures in child welfare are often set up to separate families, rather than to help bring them together in times of difficulty. Sometimes the agencies responsible for helping families stay together are actually called the division of children and families. Our relationships matter. The Harvard study of adult development reached the perhaps surprising conclusion that our relationships have as powerful an impact on our health as any physical factor like exercise or cholesterol levels. Dr. Robert Waldinger, the study's director, said, "Loneliness kills. It's as powerful as smoking or alcoholism." I'd like you to take a moment to think about your relationships. Visualize the 5 most important people in your life right now. maybe your partner, your kids, your parents, friends, or siblings. What would you give up if you had to keep them? If they disappeared from your life today, how long would you grieve? Could I make you whole by providing someone else to fill that role? Of course not. But this is how we often treat children in foster care, as if the important relationships in their lives can be easily replaced with other relationships. Children's relationships matter to them just as much as ours matter to us. Even more so, in that children's developing brain architecture actually depends on the establishment and continuity of crucial relationships. The impact of family and community relationships for a child is central to their identity, their future, and their understanding of why they matter. Dr. Robyn Fivush's work on the connection between family stories and adolescent resilience and identity is particularly poignant for children experiencing foster care. An understanding of one's ancestry can be an important part of this. Star, a teenager in Kentucky, is a good example of this. Star finally had a stable, caring foster home, but her parents' challenges left a void where her story should have been. Her social worker used Connect Our Kids tools to locate Star's paternal grandmother. From her, Star was surprised and pleased to learn that she had been named for a great-grandmother who had been so determined to seek a better life for herself and her children that she immigrated from England to the United States as a young woman. Star's foster parents recognized how important it was for her to know her own people and their stories, so they drove her to meet her grandmother and begin building a relationship with her. If knowing their family's stories can help children weather difficult times, then foster children need those stories perhaps more than anyone. Another good example comes from Ohio. Daniel had deeply committed foster parents who wanted to adopt him. But Daniel refused the adoption because he felt he wasn't worth adopting. He considered his parents failures. Addictions and prison had meant that they hadn't been able to care for him. If his parents were failures, well, he must be one too. Daniel's social worker decided to broaden his view of his family and hoped it might help him shift his story. She used Connect Our Kids tools to get enough information to then use Ancestry.com, and she built out a family tree. When she showed him his tree, filled with lots of regular people, as well as a great-grandfather who had been a well-loved small-town pastor, and a great-grandmother who had been a nurse in World War II, Daniel was stunned. "Wait, what?" he said. "There are good people in my family?" Daniel also got to meet other living relatives, including his grandmother, who he now sees regularly. His social worker told us that he's different now. He stands straighter, smiles more, and he's become open to being adopted by his foster family because he knows better who he is. Research shows that foster children placed with supportive family do better than those who live with strangers. They experience less trauma, have fewer behavioral challenges, and are more likely to graduate from high school. Dr. Jody Keller-Koenig's work tells us that family stories not only build resilience, but that developing a complete narrative are actually important healing medicine for processing past or perhaps ongoing trauma. Who, what, when, and why did this happen to our family, and what is my role in it, the child wonders. Busy social workers often think that it's better or easier to keep details from a child, when in fact, research shows that the child desperately needs enough information to make some sense of what has happened. With kin, they have this opportunity to build fuller narratives, and through these to process the emotional trauma they are experiencing. If they can't be placed with family, their family relationships and narrative building must still be supported, just like Star's foster parents and Daniel's social worker did. So hundreds of thousands of children's futures depend on social workers' ability to connect them with their people and surround them with community. But we're asking overwhelmed social workers to do this job without the tools they need, like sewing without a needle. It's really hard. In genealogy, family search is a great example of the connectivity tools to do genealogical work effectively and efficiently. Similarly, Ancestry.com, MyHeritage, and others. In child welfare, Connect Our Kids builds the tools that can keep kids connected. Because this work overlaps significantly with genealogy, tools like Family Search are integrated right into our own tools. Our family mapping tool helps visually find and show a child's connections and ancestry, allowing social workers to focus their time on engaging with the family. Connection stories happen more often than you'd think in foster care. We hear them over and over when we talk with our users. And your contributions to shared family trees can be critical in building the infrastructure needed to help foster children, to find connection to their people, their identity, and their history. If this work speaks to you, we would love for you to join our outreach effort on social media or to reach out to us for a further conversation. The impact of your work in genealogy might just be much greater than you think. Thank you.
Jennifer, thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
We've learned so much, so amazing. It's amazing to see the impact that this family history has had on so many people. We would like to, we have a QR code. We're going to now open it up to questions from the audience. So we're going to get a slide up that you can, there it is, right there. You can click that. And now what I would like is you are submitting your questions, so you click that and then you can put in a question. As you submit your questions, I'd like to invite Doctors Fivush and Kellis back to the stage. Come on out. Give them a round of applause as they're coming out.
Thanks.
Look at this.
We're back.
Yes, you are. And you even have notes.
I do.
You were back there taking so many notes.
Exactly.
So before I ask questions from the audience, what did you think about the presentations, what you just saw?
I thought they were incredible. I mean, my heart is in translational storytelling, and these individuals, Lindsay, Jesse, and Jennifer, they're all putting it into practice in the most meaningful ways for people who really need it. So I was inspired.
Yes.
Of course, that, but also bringing up such critically important factors in how we think about family history. Yeah. The importance of place and space, the importance of names. We were talking about this over dinner last night. Where does your name come from?
Yeah.
And just having that knowledge. So small things that we don't often think of because we're always in space, we're always in a place. When we think about the family home or coming through, walking in the footsteps of, and people who don't have the privilege of having that information.
Yeah. And I love that sometimes we think it needs to be a big thing, but it can be something as small as a name, like we saw in one of those videos.
Yes.
Something as small as a name makes someone know that they matter and they're important. All right, I'm starting to get some questions.
Great.
It says, your research really resonated with this industry. Does it surprise you to hear the impact that you've had?
I'll let you take that one.
Yes. As academics, we live in a very different world most of the time. And we've both been fortunate in that we're both interested in, and people have been interested in our research. And we've done workshops, and I've worked with parent groups and grandparent groups. Jody, of course, has done the narrative intervention work around narrative connections. I was not prepared for the size and positive intensity of RootsTech, and also that everybody calls it the Emory study. I love that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Have you been surprised?
Yes, I mean, well, I think what I wanted to say at the beginning, and I forgot to say, is it's almost like being with your people,
Yeah.
right? The number of people that have talked about family storytelling since we've been here. I mean, we work in our little academic corners, and we're the sole people who are doing research and family storytelling. And really, the two of us are among few people in the field doing this work, and our graduate students. And so to hear everyone focus so much on the things that are important to us and that we love is kind of amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Are written family stories as effective as oral storytelling?
Oh, that's a great question. So we've had, go ahead.
No, do you want to
Yeah.
start?
Yeah. We've had people write their family stories, and we've had them tell their family stories. We were talking about this at another dinner or lunch the other day about how powerful it is to engage in storytelling in person.
Yeah.
And so there's something about the process of telling stories together, particularly because when they are family stories, you can really build on one another in ways that are really meaningful and important to creating family identity.
Yes.
And so I would say that, of course, I'm biased, I'm a communication researcher. I think written stories matter, certainly, and some of the companies here that do that, like Storyworth, I think is this incredible, you know, you can write and learn your family's stories, and I think that that is incredibly important. And to create shared meaning, there is something very important about doing that in person.
I don't want to take anything away from written family stories. Sometimes they are all we have, and they are unbelievably meaningful. The letters, the diaries, the stories. But when you sit with somebody and hear the story, the idiom is from their lips.
Yes.
It's different. And we're struggling with this now in some work that I'm doing with ANU, which is the Museum of the Jewish People in Tel Aviv, around Holocaust survivors. Because there are now about 250,000 survivors of the Holocaust still living. They're quite old. We will be losing that living history. There are archives, there are videos, but the grandchildren, maybe the great-grandchildren, will be the last generation to hear the stories from their lips.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how do we preserve that? How do we accept that honor and obligation and privilege to carry somebody's stories? And it relates, I think, a little bit, Jody, to your work on compassionate witnessing.
Yeah.
There are different ways to hear stories, and I think we hear them differently
We do.
when we're sitting and talking.
Yes.
Yeah. And we have to learn how to not only tell stories, but how to listen to stories. I think that that's such an important part of it.
Yes.
Because part of the way that we feel affirmed and a sense of belonging, which we knew was one of the most important things to our own mental health, is to be listened to in a way that is compassionate.
And I feel like that makes the story that you're sharing even realize that it is important when someone is genuinely listening to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love hearing the person's voice as well.
Yes.
How can I make family history and storytelling more fun for my kids?
Okay, I'll take that one. First thing I want to do is, I get this question all the time, and I have to reassure families, you don't think your adolescents want to talk about this. They roll their eyes, they go, oh, come on, not again. But in fact, we've now interviewed hundreds, if not thousands of adolescents. And we ask them, tell us stories you know about your parents, when your parents were growing up, your grandparents. We ask them for stories, positive stories, difficult stories, stories about things that your parent might regret. Over 95% of these adolescents and young people can tell you a story, and they are happy, they want to tell you these stories. If anything, what we hear is, I wish I knew more stories.
Yes.
So you think they're not listening, but they are. On the other hand, I also think you can do things, you can have like a family story night.
Yeah. How would it be? I think it is so fun hearing a story and hearing your grandparents tell you a story. How do you make the searching for family history? How do you make that part fun?
I think that's a really good question. I really loved in one of the presentations the idea of, looking through pictures together, right? So like gathering the photo album, which because our pictures are all on our phones now, we rarely do. So I really loved that idea of pulling that out and then learning things about the family. I will tell you that I have teenagers who act like they don't care and are not listening and don't want to hear my stories. But when I learned of Robyn's 20 questions, I made it sort of a competition. Yeah. Like I was like, do you know these? And how many do you know? And so we actually did sit down at the table to use some of those. So I think there's ways to make it fun.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's sitting down and hearing your story. Yeah. I love hearing how my parents met. And I know my kids, even though they roll their eyes and, oh, gross, they love hearing about those moments.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is stories don't always emerge fully blown in a single moment.
Right.
They'll emerge over time. Maybe you start to tell a story to your child and they roll their eyes and you go, okay, not the right time. But maybe a few days later or a few weeks later, something else is happening. And it matches something that's going on in their lives. And suddenly they're more open to that story.
Yeah.
So I also think that there has to be a sense of, this is important, you have to sit down and I'm going to tell you these stories and you must listen.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's not how we communicate as human beings.
No.
It's the casual
exactly.
conversation.
The stories emerge as needed.
In the car,
The car is one of the best places so that you don't have to be face to face.
Yes.
Stories emerge. But I think, too, we can ritualize storytelling more than we do.
Ooh, talk about that.
So this is not based on my research. This is based on my experience as a parent. But I tell my kids the story of their birth every birthday. And the story evolves over time. And I could see it when my oldest was little. They anticipated what was coming.
Like the parts.
Like, and then added to it. But I think from a family history perspective, if you ritualize it and you do that every year, then you could bring up other stories. Like, oh, well, do you know how, do you know where your grandma was born? And you can talk about those kinds of stories by pulling them together.
I love that, ritualizing it. What a great idea. You guys are good at this.
Well, thanks. That's why they pay us the big bucks.
We've got one more question. You mentioned processing our own story and that it must be done as a parent before we can help others process their stories. Can you expound on that? How does one process their own story?
I mean, I would say one of the best books that talks about this is Dan Siegel's Parenting from the Inside Out. So I think where you process the story is in therapy, in conversation with other people, in journaling. I think it's really important that we figure out what are the difficulties that we had in our families of origin and what we're bringing with us to the current family, and how can we process that before we bring that trauma or baggage into our parenting. Do you want to add anything?
I also think this resonates with themes that we've already talked about, like why is it important to hear the story from somebody's own lips?
Yeah.
Stories are social. It's not just my story, it's our story.
Right.
And when I'm sharing my story with you, you're listening and you're adding bits of your story and we're constructing a story together.
Yeah.
That's processing.
Yes.
So when I'm telling you my story and you say, oh, that happened to me once and blah, blah, and then, but I did this to help myself or to solve it.
Right.
You've now given me tools to understand my story differently. So yes, certainly in more formal settings like therapy, but I think this is what families do together.
Yeah.
They process it together.
Well, and
they make sense out of it together.
And that's part of why we're doing the interventions that we do. Sometimes we need to tell stories with other parents, not with our kids, just in building community with each other and understanding and feeling less alone by hearing each other's stories. I'm not perfect, you're not perfect. We hear that when we hear other people's stories of struggle.
Isn't that amazing? That's how we are created as human beings. When we're in community, that's how we can solve so many problems.
Exactly.
I have one more question that I'd like to ask.
I want to say one thing. We have been telling stories even before we had language.
Yeah.
Right.
So we've been telling stories for millions of years.
We're storytelling creatures.
That is who we are. We can't not tell stories.
Where do you see the future of this research going?
I mean, for me, the future of the research is us as researchers applying what we know from the science to workshops and programming with people who can benefit from connecting through storytelling. That's where I think it is. And one of my passion projects is working with parents whose kids struggle with their mental health. We're in a mental health crisis. And so I think, and some of the presenters before us talked about the mental health problems that kids are facing. I think we need to help families through that crisis by allowing them to make sense of and connect through storytelling.
Wonderful. Amen. You got an amen out there.
I could not say that any better.
You're amening it as well. All right. Thank you both for being here
Thank
today.
you.
This has been wonderful. Let's give them
Thank
a
you
round of applause.
all.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hugger?
We're huggers.
Yeah, hugger. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, friends, before we wrap up, take a quick pulse check. That's like this, 2 fingers on your neck. Did you enjoy the impact forum today? Yes. It's amazing. We're going to move on now. I love the energy that's here today. We're going to take that enthusiasm, and I know that we're going to go into the next section, our general session. In 30 minutes, we're going to bring this energy, the knowledge that we have, the people that just came in. Let's not keep it secret what we learned here just now in this past hour. Let's share it with everybody. That's what we do. We just learned that today. We're better as a community. We're better when we share our stories. So the knowledge that you learned here at RootsTech, take that in your life and share it with people coming in that sit next to you. Put your arm around them and say, hey, cuz, can't believe we got to tell stories together. So we'll see you in 30 minutes. Thank you guys so much.
Records. Words on a page. Images once captured, stored up, sometimes buried. Like a treasure waiting to be rediscovered. One in a million others just like it. But imagine what we could learn. Imagine what we could understand. Who we could become if we could simply remember. Within each record is a story from another time, a story of strength, resilience, and sacrifice. A story of celebration, loss, and new dreams. But to someone, a simple record could be that long-searched-for answer, that clue to who they are, or that undeniable hope for healing. And record by record, a story can mean something. Its power can do something. Because that story, that record, is one in a million.
Because of BYU Pathway, we are finding our way.
It's helping to give me a voice.
Give me a second chance.
BYU Pathway has really helped me to become self-reliant.
And it's been one of the best investments of my life.
It's such a blessing to be able to increase my education and get my degree.
Our income went up significantly.
BYU Pathway has increased my faith in Jesus Christ.
This changed my whole life.
Don't believe me, please test it. Do it yourself.
GEDmatch is the free DNA analysis website that offers more DNA comparison tools than anywhere else. You'll have access to a suite of DNA tools, allowing you to delve deeper into your results. Compare your DNA to everyone on the site. or to a specific person. Or find matches that are related to two different people. And much, much more. Sign up for a free account and start finding matches at www.gedmatch.com.
Have you or someone you know had an unexpected discovery after taking an at-home DNA test? Perhaps you are adopted or a donor-conceived person? DNA Angels is founded on the principle that it is a fundamental human right to know who our biological parents are. Our mission is to promote family connections by providing support, guidance, and expertise to individuals facing the complexities of non-paternal events, donor conception, or adoption. DNA Angels, finding families one DNA strand at a time.
We talk a lot about living in the present, but the present doesn't exist without the past. I want to know where I came from. Family, faith, and food, those are some of the most important parts of my upbringing. They've brought joy, comfort, and meaning to my life. I'm just starting this next part of life, and by learning more about where I come from, I'll better understand who I am and where I'm going.
Forever is a one-stop shop for all things memory keeping. At Forever, we don't believe in temporary. We believe in permanence. Our flagship product, Forever Storage, operates under the own, don't rent policy. Pay for your storage once and we'll preserve your memories for your lifetime plus 100 years, with the goal of many generations beyond that. We are the only complete memory keeping service out there, specializing in digitization, print, scrapbooking, and even genealogy. Uniquely yours for generations to come.
Find the missing connections in your family with Family Tree DNA. As the only company to offer autosomal DNA, mitochondrial DNA, and Y-DNA testing services, Family Tree DNA is the place to go to discover more. More about your ancestry. More connections in your family tree. More surnames. More generations. Where will your DNA take you? Test with Family Tree DNA and find out today.
An ancient proverb says, "From tiny acorns do mighty oaks grow." Your family has a story, history, roots. New beginnings and discoveries carve the path which led to where you are today. With one of the largest and most comprehensive family history websites at your fingertips, retrieving facts and untold stories about your ancestors is only a click away. Genealogy Bank. Your family's history lives here.
DNA testing is amazing. Every time I identify a match, it feels like my ancestors are raising their hands and greeting me. DNA Painter can help you explore your results in more detail, visualizing your matches, solving family mysteries, adding DNA documentation to your tree. Genealogists from all over the world use DNA Painter to help them investigate their matches. DNApainter.com.
Mylio Photos opens the door to accessing, organizing, storing, and protecting a lifetime of memories. You can have all your photos at your fingertips, synced effortlessly on all your devices. With Mylio Photos, I can be cloud independent. I can see and view my photos without the internet. Even the biggest photo and video library can be collected, protected, and accessed on any device, anywhere, at any time.
This is Rick's aunt.
Yep, you can click to listen. Go ahead.
This is Rick's aunt.
Discover the rich tapestry of your family's history with Roots Magic, the ultimate genealogy software. With the release of Roots Magic 9, exploring your family tree has never been simpler. Join the thousands of family historians who trust Roots Magic as the place to plant their family tree. And for a limited time, RootsTech attendees can enjoy our new version 9 and save up to 50% off the regular price. Get it today at rootsmagic.com/rootstech.
On MyHeritage, you can build your family tree and make amazing discoveries about your family history really easily. Let me show you how. First, go to myheritage.com. Sign up and enter a few names. You, your parents, and your grandparents, or whatever information you have. Pretty simple, right? That's my great-grandma. MyHeritage found her name in another family tree, which added 50 relatives to mine in one click. So you can grow your family tree and make new discoveries instantly. MyHeritage has billions of historical records from around the world that reveal new details about your ancestors. You can search the records yourself, or sit back and watch the discoveries roll in. I also discovered this photo of my grandfather's parents. Now I finally know what they looked like. MyHeritage has great tools to colorize my black and white photos and bring my blurry photos into focus. I never imagined it would be so easy to discover my family history. You can also download the free MyHeritage mobile app to make discoveries on the go. Visit myheritage.com and start your family history journey today.
We talk a lot about living in the present, but the present doesn't exist without the past. I want to know where I came from.
Oh, talapalava! It's good to finally meet. It's good to finally meet.
Family, faith, and food, those are some of the most important parts of my upbringing. They've brought joy, comfort, and meaning to my life. Being in Samoa, pictures do not do it justice. You cannot comprehend how amazing it is. And I can't wait to see more of it. I'm just starting this next part of life, and by learning more about where I come from, I'll better understand who I am and where I'm going.
Looking at the future and like what's about to come has definitely caused me to look more at the past, because where I came from has made me who I am. I'm super excited to go to the UK. I'm gonna see where I'm from, where my ancestors walked.
It's really cool to be standing where they got married. Like, it makes it feel so much more real. Like, this is where they started their family.
Becoming a new parent is scary, but seeing that my ancestors and the people before me have done it over and over again gives me a lot of hope that I'll be able to do it too.
Records. words on a page. Images once captured, stored up, sometimes buried. Like a treasure waiting to be rediscovered. One in a million others just like it. But imagine what we could learn. Imagine what we could understand. Who we could become if we could simply remember. Within each record is a story from another time, a story of strength, resilience, and sacrifice. A story of celebration, loss, and new dreams. But to someone, a simple record could be that long-searched-for answer. That clue to who they are. Or that undeniable hope for healing. And record by record, a story can mean something. Its power can do something. Because that story, that record, is one in a million.
People who are
there's a vulnerability that it takes to be able to share a story, and I love how kind everybody is. I would love to talk to you guys. This is the pre-show, so this isn't it yet. It's very loosey-goosey. I have a slide of my grandfather that I would like to share with everybody. This is my grandpa Hayborn. You can see where I get my good looks. He is the epitome of kindness. I was born in Wyoming. And my grandpa, he was so funny, he was so kind, he would take us out individually as grandkids to breakfast, even when we didn't know what that meant. He'd take us to different restaurants, to diners, and I loved that experience, going out with my grandpa. My grandpa taught me, from his example, that kindness, there are 3 L's when you're kind. My grandpa, he listened. He was always listening to me. He knew that I wanted to be funny, and he would laugh at my jokes, even when they were stupid. Even from a 5-year-old, I was trying to be funny. He gave me a joke book when I turned 8 called The Greatest Joke Book Ever, and I loved it. And one of my favorite jokes from that is, how do you stop a charging rhinoceros? You take away his credit card. I didn't get it at 8, but I told it to so many adults, and they laughed, so I thought it was hilarious. So my grandpa, he listened to me. That was the first L. The second thing that my grandpa did that epitomized kindness was he lifted me up. He was always telling me how great I was. And then the third thing is that he showed as kindness is that he loved me. So my grandpa listened to me, and when we moved away from Wyoming, we moved to Utah when I was 11 years old, and every Sunday in Wyoming, we would get the comics. There's a thing for young kids, there's a newspaper that used to exist that would come, and the Sunday was filled with the comics, and it had all the great comics, Family Circus, Peanuts, Beetle Bailey, I loved The Far Side, and I would read those, and I would love them, and my grandpa saw that. I don't think I ever said to my grandpa, Hayborn, I don't think I ever said, Grandpa, I love the comics, but he saw, he knew me, he was kind, he listened, he lifted me up, and he loved me. So I would read those comics. When we moved to Utah, no offense to the Utah newspapers, but their comics weren't funny. One, they were laid out completely different. Like I had to search through, and some of the ones that I had loved growing up from 0 to 11, they weren't there in the Utah newspaper. So again, my grandpa, I didn't complain to him. He was still in Wyoming. So every week, my amazing, loving, lifting, and listening grandfather showed his kindness by putting in a manila envelope just the funnies. We called them the funnies. Every week until the year that he passed. So I was probably about 15 or 16. So for 5 or 6 years, my grandpa Hayborn showed me that he loved me by sending me in the mail in a manila envelope the Wyoming comics. And I loved that. I loved that about my grandpa. And I wanted to share that with you because I think today is when you're out there connecting with people and listening and learning from people, I would love for you to feel that kindness, feel that connection with them. I'll come over here because the camera's over here. So lucky this side of the room, I would love for you to think of someone who is kind. When I say the word kind, who's the first person that comes to mind? Do you have somebody that comes to mind? I say kind, who is that?
My mother.
Your mother, why?
She was always thinking of everybody else.
I love that. Gosh, we're already crying, you guys. Who else? I think sometimes by saying the person's name too, you remember them. Who's kind to you, Bryce?
My late grandmother.
Your late grandmother. What made her kind?
I don't know. It's probably what she did to a cousin of mine, not on her side. And then she's the epitome of kindness and all that. She would never raise her voice. She tried to calm down my grandpa, and he had a temper, but never did. But that was her. She was the epitome of kindness there.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Can you guys feel that when we're kind, we're lifted? Can you feel that spirit? How are you doing? You've got somebody that's kind. I'm going to crawl over your guys' laps. I apologize. Who's kind?
My sister.
Why?
She's going through some horrible stuff right now, and she reaches out to people.
She reaches out.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Pam.
So
Pam.
Yes, Pam. She's beautiful. She lifts others. Who have you run into here that's been kind? I'll take this, though.
Oh, I'm sorry, not run there.
No, I know. I asked the question after you rose your hand. Who's kind?
When you were saying earlier that uplifting, it reminded me of my aunt who passed away in 1981. But as a youth, as your grandfather did, he listened to you. He uplifted you. She always gave me lots of positive affirmation. She would introduce me to people, and she would say, this is my wonderful niece, and she's done this, this, and this, and all my little accomplishments. But she always made me feel so very special. She didn't have any children, so she was like a second mother
I love that.
to me, and it has stayed with me my entire life.
I love that. So obviously, we're getting to the point of we need to be kind. You feel good when you're kind to people, right? Let's come. Who's been kind here to you? Has anybody been kind here to you?
dear friend. She has come every morning to pick me up.
Dear friends. Yes, she's lifted you up. I love that. How does it make you feel knowing that you're kind?
It makes me feel good, but she's a wonderful lady.
Oh my goodness, you guys, we should just all give each other a big hug. This is so good. Yes.
I can say my cousin Arlene sitting next to me, she paid for my way here in my room. She's always so wonderful and kind, always.
That's amazing. She's so kind, she gave an extra seat in between the two of you.
We have a friend.
That's true kindness, knowing we gotta be separated just a little bit. Yeah, I'm gonna come over here. Yes. Who's kind to you?
So lots of people in my life are kind, but I wanted to mention my sister to today, the one just older than me. She just retired. I went to her retirement party at work, and everybody there said how kind she is. She's got smiles, she's helpful, and I couldn't agree more.
I love that. The thing I like about kindness is I do it to be selfish, really, because when you're kind, people like you. It just makes you a likable person. Yes, coming over here. How are you guys? Okay, hi.
I met Shelba and Mary on the front runner train yesterday, and I made sure I got off on the right stop, and I got here perfectly.
Look at that.
So I don't even know them, but I love them.
And there were kind people
And they
that
were
you didn't even know.
Yes.
Yes, we're all better people when we're kind. How are you? I apologize. Are there any nice people back here? Yes.
The seat 3 downs from me.
1, 2, 3.
Is a life friend.
Yes.
She's also distantly related, but I can't remember what it is. She listens, lifts, and loves. All 3.
I love it. All 3. Is that you?
Stand up.
Oh, that's you. Does that make you want to be kinder when someone says you're kind?
Sure.
I'm going to answer yes.
Okay.
The answer is yes. Okay, I'll come right over here. Yes, who's kind?
My mom, who's sitting right
Oh,
next
my
to me.
goodness.
She is my biggest supporter, and I even have childhood friends who still talk about my mom and how they wished that she was their mom.
That's so great. What's something about your mom? Like, okay, I'm going to make this really hard.
Yeah.
So we already know she's kind.
Yeah.
In one word, I want you to look at your mom
Yes.
and describe her in one word. But you got to look at her first.
Okay. Loving.
Loving.
Yes.
Why?
And she just truly sees the good in all people, and I think she really wants to lift other people up, and she never wants anyone to feel sad or lonely. She just wants everyone to feel at their very best. She wants other people to feel good.
How lucky are you? She's making me cry too.
Can I share one more?
Yeah, we've got like 15 minutes, yeah.
Okay, so it would be you. My kids are your
you're
biggest
so nice.
fans. They watch Making Good. I cannot tell you how many times we watch every episode over and over and over again. So before you go, can I get a selfie?
We for
Because
sure
they
can get a
will-
selfie, yes.
They will freak out.
Okay.
So thank you for doing what
Oh,
you do.
that's so
We
nice.
are
Thank
so
you.
appreciative for all of the good media that you put out there
Oh.
and for the good example. And because of you, we volunteer monthly at a men's shelter in Boise where we
awesome.
live, and my kids get to serve the
Isn't that amazing?
people there.
That's kindness. So you're talking about your mom who's kind. You're
Yep.
kind too.
Well, she taught me how to do it, and when we love it, and thank you so much.
Yeah.
We love you.
Thank you so much. This is so exciting. So today, you know, when the presenters get up, they seem all professional. They're vulnerable, you know. I'm vulnerable. Even the sponsors, they get up, they're vulnerable. Let's be kind. Let's be lifting. Let's love. Have kind thoughts in your heart and in your mind so that when they get up here, that we can support them. It's all about sharing our stories and loving and connecting. And we've got now 2 minutes really quick. Thank you all for being here. When I come back out again, we've been broadcasting this, so there's been millions of people listening to this. Hopefully, with what we talked about with kindness today, that's going to change the world. There are millions watching right now, so continue to be kind today. Feel that beautiful spirit that you felt, and pass it forward. Listen, love, connect, lift up, all of that. Okay, so we got about 2 minutes. When I come back out here, let's act like this is the greatest day of our lives, all right? So thank you guys so much for participating. Be kind to each other. I love you guys. Thank you so much. We'll be back in just about 2 minutes. Okay? Woohoo!
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the RootsTech 2024 MC, Kirby Hayborn.
Yay! Woohoo! How is this crowd over here? Are you guys good? I just noticed you're all so very kind and reverent, looking just that way. And I sometimes think, why are they not looking at me? I'm over here, but I'm over there too. So I look a little better over there, a lot taller. Thank you, everybody, for coming back. Today is RootsTech day number 2 of the 2024 RootsTech by Family Search. Super excited to be here. I am Kirby. I don't know if you remember from before, but I'm the same guy. So excited to be here again, and we are back for more. I hope that you've been diving deep into everything that RootsTech has to offer, because believe it or not, after today, pull out your tissues. There's only one more day left. It's so sad, and we talked about it yesterday, that you look forward to this. Once it ends, you look forward to the next year. It's so amazing, the connections that we make. Before we jump into today's incredible lineup, I have something very special to share with you. Are you ready for it? Good, because I'm going to tell you whether you're ready or not. It's time to talk about the global watch parties happening right now. That's right, all around the world, families and friends are tuning in to experience RootsTech. So to all our viewers joining in from every corner of the globe, a big warm welcome to you too. Let's give it to them. Let's see what RootsTech attendees are up to in Rome, Italy. That's where we're going to go.
Ciao RootsTech, this is Marco Ferrini from Italy. And today, I'm excited to join all of you from the Family Research Center in Rome. This year, we decided to organize this watch party here at the Family Search Center to share the experience and create a new experience where people can come, watch RootsTech, and also get help directly from the consultants to move forward with their family history. Thank you for letting us stop by. It is a pleasure and an honor to always be a part of this worldwide RootsTech family. Ciao.
Isn't that amazing? We just think it's just all about us here in this room, but it's across the world. Everybody is a part of this. We're a part of something so much bigger than we can see. First up today, we're thrilled to have MyHeritage with us. They are the leading global platform for exploring family history. MyHeritage offers sophisticated family tree technologies, billions of easily searchable historical records, and is home to the world's best technologies for improving historical photos. Super cool. And they are the innovators of making discovery appealing to everyone, from the most devout researchers to casual viewers. Please join me in welcoming the Vice President of Marketing from MyHeritage, Aaron Godfrey. Yes!
Hello, RootsTech! I'm Aaron. Nice to see you. I'm Aaron Godfrey, VP Marketing of MyHeritage, and it's wonderful to be back here on the Salt Palace stage. Now, friends, please don't let my accent distract you, because I have some incredible MyHeritage updates that I want you to hear. Whether your family story is deeply rooted in the US or began halfway across the globe, MyHeritage is proud to be part of your journey. We believe in the power of genealogy to change people's lives for the better, and are committed to developing amazing products and features that take your family history research to the next level. This past year, we took innovative genealogy further than ever before with the addition of powerful AI features. AI Biographer lets you create a Wikipedia-like biography for any ancestor using AI, enriched with information from your family tree, historical context, photos, and footnotes. In just 2 months since the launch, more than 100,000 biographies have been created. Thank you. AI Record Finder, also launched 2 months ago, lets you find historical records easily through an interactive chat. It's the world's first AI conversation-based search engine for historical records. Think of it as a ChatGPT for genealogy. You can count on MyHeritage to continue to innovate in AI and other areas and push the boundaries of what's possible in genealogy. The MyHeritage Wiki is a new community-led online encyclopedia for genealogy and DNA. New collaborators are welcome, so please go to myheritage.com/wiki to explore and register. And just this week, we reached the incredible milestone of 20 billion global historical records on MyHeritage. Thank you. Now, among the most popular sections on MyHeritage are family tree profile pages, and yesterday we released newly improved ones. We've transformed profiles into a central hub for everything known about an individual in your family tree. This update includes the introduction of hints. Hints indicate the life events and close relatives from smart matches and record matches that are missing in your tree and that you can easily add. You can confirm hints and take the information without leaving the page. There are many new cool features, so I invite you to visit your MyHeritage account today to check it out. And if for some reason you don't yet have a MyHeritage account, there's never been a better time to sign up. Next week, we'll add our AI-powered photo scanner to the MyHeritage mobile app, so you can scan entire album pages or individual photos in seconds. Then you can use MyHeritage's amazing photo features to colorize and enhance your photos. Thank you. On MyHeritage DNA, we've added mandatory two-factor authentication to increase your security. But this made it challenging to get help from a DNA expert. Well, you asked, and we've listened, and later this month, you'll be able to invite another MyHeritage user to view your DNA results to help you unlock your discoveries. Next month, MyHeritage will launch an exciting new product integration with our friends at Family Tree DNA. FTDNA users will be able to transfer their family trees to MyHeritage in just a few clicks and benefit from all of our exciting genealogy features and historical records. Told you there's a lot. Continuing the theme of you asked and we've listened, a major update is coming to our DNA ethnicity results soon. This summer, we will be releasing a superior ethnicity model that is 2 years in the making. The new model expands the estimates from 42 percentage-based ethnicities to 80. The highlights will be in Europe, where we're the strongest DNA service, offering more resolution than any other DNA company. Anyone who tested with MyHeritage since mid-2019 will get the updated ethnicity estimates for free. Thank you. Now, long before the days of social media, people got their news, big and small, from newspapers. Historical newspapers told you about current events, ranging from global world news to who won your local science fair. Well, folks, I have breaking news. Right now, here on this stage, I'm delighted to announce that MyHeritage has released oldnews.com, a brand new website for exploring historical newspapers. Oldnews.com is a treasure trove with hundreds and millions of historical pages from international newspapers to small-town journals and gazettes.
Introducing oldnews.com, a vast online archive of millions of historical newspapers from all over the world. Dive into the headlines that shaped your family's story. Access a treasure trove of historical newspapers where you'll gain new insights into your ancestors' lives and watch as stories from the past unfold. Explore the stories that made history at oldnews.com.
If you think the video's cool, wait till you see the website. Oldnews.com more than doubles the amount of historical newspapers previously available on MyHeritage and offers new and unique content. It includes publications from the English-speaking world, Europe and Australia, and that's just the beginning. Millions of pages are added monthly, and newspapers from more countries will be added in the future. You are all invited to visit oldnews.com today. You can access oldnews.com with a standalone subscription or with a brand new MyHeritage Omni plan, which is a one-stop shop for genealogy. As well as Old News, Omni gives full access to all features and content on MyHeritage, a Genie.com Pro plan, thousands of genealogy and DNA webinars on legacy family tree webinars, and unlimited photo scanning using MyHeritage's mobile apps. We have a special DNA upload promotion running for this week only. If you've tested with another service, you can upload your DNA to MyHeritage between now and March 4th and get free access forever to our market-leading advanced DNA features. Thank you. I invite you to tune in to all the MyHeritage classes available in person and on the RootsTech website. Drop by our booth to meet our team and enjoy exclusive RootsTech discounts, including 50% off all subscriptions. We've also dropped the price on DNA kits at our booth, and you can get yours now for just $33. Thank you, man over there who clapped. It has once again been my pleasure to be here today to represent MyHeritage. Thank you for joining me and for welcoming MyHeritage as part of your genealogy journey. Wishing you good health, good times with the ones you love, and remarkable family history discoveries. Thank you very much.
All right, RootsTech family, isn't MyHeritage awesome? Big thanks to them for being here. We are so grateful that they're here. Now, folks, we're about to dive into something truly special. Imagine carrying a legacy so profound that it's written into the history books. That's the story of our next speaker, Lynne Jackson. She's not just the great-great-granddaughter of Dred and Harriet Scott. She's a bridge from their fight for freedom into our lives today. So let's get ready to be moved, inspired, and connected through her extraordinary story. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lynne Jackson.
Wow. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending my session at RootsTech 2024. Thank you for joining. Thank you for having me. Today, we're going to share a wonderful story that is of remembrance and inspiration, and I'm quite privileged and honored to be the one that gets to share it. In 1995, I heard my Heavenly Father say to me, "You should study Dred Scott." And I said out loud, "Yeah, I should know more than the average person." So I embarked on a study of my own, which in 2007, my earthly father, who you see here, Dr. John Madison Jr., said to me, "You are the only one who could do this." And he had been the family historian all the years before. So I embarked on a storyline that I had no clue how important it was. None of us really understood until the 150th anniversary how courageous and how amazing our ancestors really were to do what they did all those many years ago. Dred and Harriet Scott fought for their freedom, which became the freedom of so many other people. But they had an 11-year ordeal with 5 court proceedings that took them all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, only to hear Chief Justice Taney say to them, "You're not a citizen." He threw the case out. They had no standing in court. And he further said that they had no rights that whites were bound to respect. And sadly, he said that they were beings of an inferior order, so far inferior that they shouldn't even associate with the white race. They said some other things that allowed slavery to be coast to coast if it had not been fought. And yet, Dred and Harriet persisted. Dred had been born on the plantation of Peter and Elizabeth Blow in Southampton, Virginia. They had 11 children, and several of them, the 3 that you see here in particular, Taylor, Henry, and Charlotte, were very instrumental in helping Dred and Harriet all those years of their case. The father had owned slaves, but the children never did. And they even helped Dred past his death. As it turns out, it's a wonderful story. I wish we had a little more time, but Dred and Harriet were actually bought by Taylor Blow with the express purpose of freeing them from the owners that had been holding him. And what you see here, oh, thank you. Yeah, I think that's pretty special. What you see here is a copy of the freedom licenses that Taylor Blow paid $1,000 each for Dred and Harriet so that they could exercise their freedom. This is a picture of the old courthouse in St. Louis, where on April the 6th, 1846, they started their case, which ended on March 6th of 1857. Their case was a major catalyst for the Civil War. And we all know the history of Abraham Lincoln, although you may not know that he decided not to get out of politics when he heard the Dred Scott decision and consequently became the 16th president. But after the war and after his assassination, he had already put in place for the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery. And then the 14th Amendment overturns the Dred Scott decision in a sense that it gave citizenship to all who were born in America, especially enslaved Americans. And then it wouldn't be right unless you had the 15th Amendment, which gave them the right to vote. Of course, we're talking about men, not women, until 1920. But the Dred Scott amendments came out of the Dred Scott decision. So fast forward just a little bit, the family history of Dred and Harriet. They had 2 daughters. You see Eliza and Lizzie, and obviously I descend from one of them. But a funny story is that all the years until we started doing the work for the foundation, we thought it was the wrong daughter. So one wonderful lady in St. Louis, Ruth Ann Hager, a certified genealogist, now retired, wanted to do a brief pamphlet on Harriet. And somehow she was connected with me. I gave her a name. I gave her the name Wilson Madison. Most people did not know. She was able to find the right Harriet, but she found so much more that it turned into this beautiful quintessential book, which is the Dred and Harriet Scott family story. And it is amazing. We coordinated with it together, and a few other people helped. But this book tells the family story, and that in itself is a whole nother issue, but it's a beautiful thing. From Dred Scott and the two daughters, Eliza is my great-grandmother. The etching that you see is my great-grandfather. So I always tell people the easy way to remember it is that Dred Scott's grandson is my grandfather. His name was John Alexander Madison. In the picture in the center, you see my grandmother, his wife, with 4 of their 7 children. And then the next picture, you see my grandmother again, my mother, and yes, that's me. Little. And we are standing at the place where Dred Scott was buried, which happened after he had been at another cemetery. But Taylor Blow moved him from that cemetery, which was about to be abandoned, to Calvary Cemetery, and he lay in an unmarked grave here for 90 years. Father Edward Dowling, a Jesuit priest, was going through the records at Calvary and located Dred Scott just by accident, his lot number. So he's sharing that with our family. This was in Ebony magazine about 1957, I believe. And so from that, he said that I would like to erect a small headstone in his honor. However, if anyone ever wants to do more one day, they will at least know where he lies. So from that, we were able to get this beautiful marker, and it was about 28 inches high, 24 inches wide. That's my dad and my uncle Dred Scott laying a wreath for the first time that Dred Scott's grave had ever been marked since his death. And so from that time, Mrs. Harrison decided that she, as a granddaughter of Taylor Blow, wanted to be the one to buy that marker, and she did so. The lady you see there is Susan Blow, by the way, who is the granddaughter of Henry Blow, and thank you for that. And she is the woman who started the first kindergarten in the United States. So that's part of the Blow family. Beautiful people they are. This is a family portrait. It's really the only heirloom we have. It's a charcoal drawing of Dred and Harriet. I don't have the exact date on it, but we think it goes back at least to 1860 because it was found with one of the boys, one of the grandsons of Dred Scott, as they sat as orphans on a curb. And this is very special. Thanks to Linda Buggs Sims and Jim Vincent, we have from the from the Blow family Bible, a line that says, Sam, a Negro boy born from a son of January of 1756. What people don't know is that Dred Scott was born Sam Blow. And so in the family Bible, they recorded their slaves. And the gentleman who owned the Bible also told his family that they should not treat their slaves poorly. And as you can see, they did not. This is a copy of our family Bible that Grandmother Grace passed on to me. It's over 1,000 pictures in this page, 2,000-page Bible, and I treasure it. In 2006, I started the Dred Scott Heritage Foundation to commemorate the 150th anniversary. And from that, we decided that commemoration, education, and reconciliation would be our pillars. And of course, that came from upstairs, too. So we commemorated it, as well as we erected the first and only statue of Dred and Harriet Scott, which is outside the old courthouse in St. Louis. Appreciate that. Education speaks for itself, but reconciliation is a very powerful thing that we do. The sons and daughters of reconciliation are represented here, and you can see that we have descendants from Jefferson Davis, Thomas Jefferson, Dred Scott, as well as the Blow family, and not only that, but the Tawney family. In 2017, Charlie Tawney, a great-great-nephew of Justice Tawney, did a public apology to our family and to all people, and we did that in front of the statue of his ancestor. Fast forwarding, we also have I'm not doing that, I'm sorry. Back to the next screen. So fast forwarding, we are sharing the new headstone. Remember Father Dowling said, if anyone ever wants to do more, they at least know where he lied. So it had always been in my heart that people should know him, and the marker did not say much. So this one was erected on September 30th in Calvary Cemetery. It is engraved on the front and the back. His image is there, scriptures are there. We were trying to do it on September 17th because that's the day he died. It has subsequently become Constitution Day, and for that reason, we honor him with a 9-foot-high black granite 10 by 10. And let me say this, Taylor Blow bought 3 grave sites, so this would be here today, because back then you could not bury a black person next to a white person. So what the devil meant for evil, God meant for good. Yeah. It's been 18 years, and I can only tell you the journey has been a miracle. So the one thing on this page I want to share with you is that there is no stamp of Dred Scott. We should all say boo, because that's disgraceful. And yet we have to have a petition drive, signature petition drive. So we invite you to do that and help us to get those signatures in and influence the powers that be, because Dred Scott should have a stamp. Bart Simpson has one, by the way, and so does Scooby-Doo. We don't like that very much. Harriet Scott's marker is here as well. That was donated in 2006, and she's buried in Greenwood Cemetery. I want to thank all of you for attending today and hearing my story, but most of all, I want to encourage everybody out there, and I don't think I have to tell you guys, do your homework. We found out that 2 babies were buried with Dred and Harriet in their graves. We did not know that until Ruth Ann Hager started to do her work. So be encouraged, use the resources that are here, and love one another and enjoy this journey, because RootsTech 2024 is an amazing thing, and we are so blessed to be here today. God bless and thank you. Bless you. Thank you.
Wow. Can we just take a second to appreciate Lynne and her message, the heartfelt journey that she shared with us. Thank you, Lynne, for such a moving presentation. We'd like to keep this momentum going, these positive feelings that we're feeling, as we go on to our next presenter. Just as Lynne's efforts shed light on the stories of her family, American Ancestors is diving into a groundbreaking initiative that will have a profound impact for generations to come. Let's take a look.
Many of our ancestors lived and died without any record to show they even existed. Like us, they had hopes, they had dreams, and they had names. I'm Henry Louis Gates Jr., host of the PBS series, Finding Your Roots. You're about to hear about a groundbreaking initiative that seeks to identify our 10 million ancestors by their given names.
By 1865, 10 million Africans and African Americans had been enslaved in the United States. Prior to the 1870 census, the men, women, and children whose forced labor helped build this nation were listed as part of their enslavers' household inventory.
We find them on property lists alongside the sheep and the horses and the cattle and the pigs. That's where we find Black people listed as property. So you might have their names, an age, a sex, but what you won't have is their connections to other people.
Harvard history professor Vincent Brown is among a council of Black scholars, Black genealogy groups, and individuals collaborating with American ancestors to launch the historic 10 Million Names Project. American Ancestors is creating an online repository that will contain the documented family history of enslaved Africans and African Americans in the U.S.
I would say that for many, many people living today, it is very difficult to get back to before emancipation, right? So genealogists often refer to the brick wall of 1870. 1870 is the first federal census where we get a ton of names of African Americans in the United States. But there are names before 1870, and as a historian, I come across them all the time, as do my peers. It's just that we never quite imagined there would be one place where all this information could live and interact.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage President and CEO of American Ancestors, Ryan Woods.
Thank you. I'm Ryan Woods, President and CEO of American Ancestors, the organization leading 10 Million Names. Our hope is that this initiative will amplify the voices of many individuals who have been telling the stories of their ancestors for years, and that it will spark an interest in family history in countless more people. 10 Million Names is not just a project. It is a deeply personal journey for me. Like so many Americans, my family history is diverse. My parents were an interracial couple married in the first generation after Loving v. Virginia. My father was born in Asia to a Black U.S. serviceman and a Korean woman. My mother, born and raised in New England, is mainly of colonial American ancestry, with most of her forebears having arrived in this country in the 17th century. My DNA composition appears as approximately 30% Korean, 49% British Isles, 15% West African, and 6% broadly Northwestern European. As a multiracial person with globally diverse ancestry, whose appearance is vaguely other, I have been asked on numerous occasions, "What are you?" It was a question that I struggled to answer with confidence and pride for years. What are you becomes who are you? And it taps into the inequality of access to genealogical information. I know the names of many of my white ancestors, but like millions of Americans of African descent, I do not know the names of many of my Black ancestors. 10 Million Names is determined to make it easier for all African Americans to discover their ancestry. Now I want to share a video with you that illustrates what our project is about.
Greetings, I'm Dorothy Tucker. I proudly served as the president of NABJ, the National Association of Black Journalists, a partner of the 10 Million Names Project. 10 Million Names is amplifying the voices of my ancestors. This important work will help millions of people. It's work that will last forever and will change history. This initiative is truly thrilling. I had the privilege of collaborating with lead researcher Lindsay Fulton to delve into my own genealogy, forging connections between my family and our enslaved ancestors.
So these are the two plots of land that he purchases, which is where the family lives today.
This is a 320
acres. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's kind of, you hear, you know, the oral history is passed along, and it's just something that you grow up knowing, but to actually see the map, see the documentation, you know, it really just kind of, it's so gratifying.
The outcomes of this exploration were nothing short of captivating. I implore you to participate in this monumental project. If you have ancestors who enslaved people, or your ancestors were enslaved, please let 10 Million Names know their names. Information shared has the potential to produce family connections. Help us make this happen.
As you see, Dorothy's family history means so much to her. There are millions of stories like Dorothy's out there waiting to be recovered. As genealogists, you understand the power of family history, and how that knowledge helps to ground you in a framework of people across time and place. Why should some people have access to their family history and not others? 10 Million Names unites genealogists, historians, families, and individuals in a single mission: to recover, restore, and remember family history. It will take us years to reach our goal of identifying as many of the 10 million names as we can, but we cannot do it without a collective community effort. If you descend from enslavers or enslaved persons, I invite you to visit 10millionnames.org to enter information you may have, upload photographs, documents, or tell your family's story. 10 Million Names is a life-changing initiative for many and a significant contribution to American history for all. Thank you.
What an honor it's been to have had the privilege to hear about one of the most important projects currently underway. After hearing the messages of this session, it's crystal clear that every narrative, every person is important, especially those who are closest to us. Our next keynote speaker certainly understands this. From the New York Times to galleries around the world, her work resonates deeply. And the accolades that she's earned, like the World Press Photo and the Humanitarian Award, they only just scratch the surface. It's Nancy's ability to capture raw emotion and untold stories that truly sets her apart. Please welcome to the stage Picture Line-sponsored Sony photographer, Nancy Borowick.
Thank you. Thank you, RootsTech and Family Search. Thank you, Picture Line and Sony. And thank you all for being here this morning. There I was, 9.5 months pregnant, standing in front of an audience at a funeral directors conference in Midtown Manhattan. I was the literal embodiment of life, talking to these undertakers about the gifts that cancer and death gave my family. Most moms to be at my stage are probably at home nesting. I was fighting for every last inch of my identity as I knew it before life would completely change with the arrival of my baby boy 10 days later. Motherhood is the new lens through which I now see life and storytelling. And as with all things in life, the best way out is always through. Thank you, Robert Frost. So to start our conversation today, I'd like to ask a few questions. How do you want to be remembered? How do you remember those that you love? Is it the sights, the sounds, the smells? For me, it's through photographs. The year was 1979. The place, Long Island, New York. The hair was big, the sideburns long, the sleeves puffy, and the dance moves electric. It was Labor Day weekend, and my parents were tying the knot. They met in St. John's Law School in the musical review. Mom sang, Dad danced, and they continued this dance for 34 years. By early December of 2012, Mom was deep into chemotherapy treatment for a second recurrence with metastatic breast cancer when my father got his diagnosis. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. There they were, in treatment together, side by side. And this was our new normal. I couldn't heal my parents, so I did what I knew how to do. I photographed them. I needed to hold on to them as much as I could, as long as I could. And what I realized pretty quickly was that the story that I was documenting and the story that we were experiencing wasn't about cancer and dying. It was about living. I believe that when you are faced with your own mortality, you truly begin to believe and understand what it means to be alive. No one wants to talk about death, but we had to. They wanted to. And talking about death was one of the greatest gifts that cancer gave us. That said, my parents did not want to be defined as cancer patients, and they certainly didn't want to be pitied. My mother was this beautiful, generous, selfless soul, and my father was boisterous and passionate and larger than life. Having lived outside of our home since high school graduation, it was a bit of a novelty to have me around. But they eventually got used to me and forgot I was there, like during this moment when they got a call about scan results. What if one had good news and one had bad news? Do you celebrate for yourself and mourn for the person you love the most in the world? We did our best to follow doctor's orders. Dad lost nearly 40 pounds overnight, and he needed to take in as many calories as he could stomach. So we did as the doctor instructed, and to no one's surprise, he gained weight. We all gained weight. There was a lot of love, a lot of joy, and a lot of dancing. And I decided to show this personal journal of photographs to a mentor of mine, worried that maybe I was too close to the story and I would miss something. And ultimately, she insisted that I share the story in a more public way, that maybe it would help others going through something similar. So I submitted the photographs to a contest. I did not win the prize, but I won something much more valuable. An email. An email from an editor at the New York Times saying he wanted to publish our story. The story for the paper needed a climax, however, and fortunately and luckily, we had an event to fit the bill. A wedding. Mine. My husband and I had gotten engaged a few months prior and decided to expedite the wedding for the sake of my parents. I think it served as a distraction, and it gave us all something to look forward to. We picked a date, October 5th, 2013. And when the day came, my parents walked me down the aisle, arm in arm, on that warm fall afternoon in the apple orchard. 2 weeks later, life changed forever. The story was published in the New York Times, and my inbox was flooded. It is amazing how alone you can feel when you're going through something like terminal illness. And here we were, the least alone we had ever felt. I grieved with every letter that came in, but I also felt a deep connection with each and every one. This was our story, but it was everyone's narrative. The very same weekend that the story ran, my father was admitted to the hospital. He was jaundiced and in a lot of pain. And it had become clear that his quality of life had sharply diminished. A do not resuscitate order was signed. A bracelet was attached to his wrist. And he lay there with a certain peacefulness about him. Remove the machines and the wires, he could be at the beach without a care in the world. This was his decision to make. We wanted him to fight, but that's what we wanted. And he had had time to make this decision. Both of his parents died when he was just a child of cancer. And he never thought he would live as long as he did, and was grateful for the time that he did have. Dad died on December 7th, 2013. It was the 40th anniversary of his mother's death, and a year and a day since diagnosis. He would have loved his funeral. There he was, center of attention, surrounded by everyone he adored in the world. When I asked him if he was curious about what people might say about him at his funeral, he said, "I don't wonder. I wrote it." He then gave me his eulogy. It was 14 pages long. But life moves on, so the project continued. My mother was the opposite of my father and hated to be the center of attention. I think she found purpose in the distraction from her disease that caring for my father gave her. Having been sick on and off for 18 years, cancer was just another item on her to-do list. She was the queen of to-do lists. I get that from her. And to me, her lists screamed life. Order Howie's headstone. Decide regarding radiation. 1! Join the gym and start going. 4! And my all-time favorite, what happened to the Girl Scout cookies? All of equal importance and all on a note. There's really only so much a person can take, and by the following fall, my mom's health started to take a turn for the worst. One night, while lying in bed beside her, she asked me if I could start looking into home hospice care. I said, of course. As I slowly turned my head to the other side of the pillow so she wouldn't see me starting to cry. I couldn't believe we were at this place. She had been sick for so much of my life. I kind of thought she'd just be sick forever, but still be there, as unfair as that is. It was hard to find levity in the final days of my mom's life, but lucky for us, we had Moses, a friend's dog, who would sit on her chest and snort with every breath. Mom watched Dad die in the hospital, with machines beeping, fluorescent lights glaring, and a slew of doctors and nurses who were practically strangers. She didn't want that. She wanted to be at home in her pajamas, listening to James Taylor, and surrounded by her family. So that's what we did. And as, we watched her chest rise and fall, we all kind of looked around at each other, checking in. You okay? You okay? And she stopped breathing. December 6th, 2014. 364 days after my father passed away, we were back in the temple. Only this time, the seat next to my brother sat empty. Not too long after she died, my siblings and I decided to start the daunting task of cleaning out our family home. And to my surprise, it was actually a really beautiful experience. We uncovered letters they wrote to one another, shoe boxes of 4x6s, even teeth collected by the tooth fairy. What do you keep? What really matters in the end? This is a bit of a challenge for me as I'm a bit of a collector. But I think back to something my mother shared with me before she died. She said, "The people you love, they live on inside of you because they're already a part of the person that you are." I am my mother's daughter, and I get to keep that forever. In Jewish tradition, you return to the cemetery a year after the loss to honor the person that you lost. We call it an unveiling. Because of the timing of my mother's death, we decided to hold off on the unveiling and honor my parents together, side by side, when we were ready. Life determined the end of the photographic part of this project, but I wasn't done telling the story. I wanted to memorialize my parents' story in some way, to give it the gravitas and the lasting legacy I felt it deserved. So I set about creating a scrapbook that could contain all of the love and wonder and joy they shared to the very end. The story took on a life of its own, and it has become a mission of mine to reframe the conversation around end of life and illness, and hopefully help others in the process. Remembering is everything. Family is everything. Jobs come and go, relationships come and go, but family, whatever that looks like for you, that is everlasting. And I want to conclude this morning with a few words from my father. Remember what we Borowicks already know. The universe never promised any of us longevity. I have outlived each of my parents by decades and lived well beyond what I had predicted or even bargained for. Longevity aside, you should know, if you do not know already, that I believe I have been the luckiest man to have ever lived on this planet. So I'm comfortable with the time that I've had. My kids, Jessica, Nancy, and Matthew. Wow, 3 beautiful flowers in my garden. Thank you for your love and what each of you has contributed to the magic of our family. Look for me in every sunset. Thank you.
Will you stay out here with me?
Huh?
Mind staying out here with me?
Oh, sure, yeah. Should I
Okay.
put this down?
Yeah,
All
set
my
it down.
all my stuff.
Thank you so much, Nancy. That's not fair that I have to come out here now. I'm a mess. Thank you
Thank you.
for sharing that. So beautiful. Before you came out, there were some family search researchers that came and met with you.
Right.
What were some of the things that they shared with you, and what were some of your impressions?
Well, we didn't have 5 hours, so we couldn't go through everything. But they shared with me stories and just these little bits of highlights that I didn't know about my family. They showed me pictures of my great-great-grandfather's home that is now a temple.
No way.
Which is wild in Brooklyn. As soon as I'm back there, I'm gonna have to check it out.
What does that mean to you? What do you think when you see that?
Since my parents died, we just had the 10-year anniversary since my father died. You know, I have lots of questions.
Yeah.
And when you've lost someone, you know that you kind of have to be okay with those questions never being answered. And I'm okay with that. But then when I get some answers and I get some clues, I'm like, I just want to dig in. Like, I feel like I know more about myself, which is so cool because, you know, I'm 38. I feel like I know myself.
Right, right.
But clearly there's more to learn. And I can't wait to just get home and share it with the rest of my family and spend time with it. Because we really have not had clear records. We've had stories that have been passed down, but with no living parents and no living grandparents, those stories are just stories that I can't verify. I can't ask follow-up questions. You know, I wish I was a real journalist then. I could have known what to ask, maybe, but I'm a person. I'm a human. I'm a daughter. I'm just so grateful.
Yes.
To be here, to have had that experience. I'm still processing it.
Yeah. Well, you have such a beautiful thing to give to your children, to show them. You've documented something beautiful, profound, and poignant. What have they said when you've shared this with them? How have they reacted?
Well, my children are 4 and 1.
Right.
So
but we've got a
Nothing
group.
yet.
We've got a group here that's excited to share stories like this with their grandkids and with their kids.
Yeah.
What is it that you're going to tell them?
You know, it's weird that it's been 10 years because it doesn't feel like it. And because I get to share this story and because I have these photographs, I remember my parents so vividly. I remember them at their highs. I remember them at their lows. And that helps me remember who they were, you know? Like, not just the smiling, happy family photos. And I can't wait to tell them about Grandma Laurel and Grandpa Howie, who would have been the best grandparents. And it's something I'm going to have to navigate, but I know that they're going to be grateful, like, to have the collection I made for them. They're going to be grateful for the Family Search collection. One of the greatest gifts I think that a friend gave me when I was working on the project was that there were times when I was nervous to ask my parents questions. I didn't want to upset them.
Right.
I didn't want to remind them that they were dying. And my friend said to me, you know, you're not really reminding them. Like, they know what's happening.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to share. You don't know unless you ask. And I guess not to my surprise, my mother, you know, it took a minute for her to share. My father, side story, I set up a camera. I did a video interview. And we sat down, and I asked a few questions. And then I stopped talking, and he spoke for 6 hours.
Oh, my goodness. Well, he's got a 14-page eulogy, I guess.
It was very on brand, Howie Borowick.
Yes.
So it's a gift. I see it that my parents gave me this gift, sharing this with me, and my hope is that my kids one day see that and appreciate it. You know, I have a 1-year-old and 4-year-old, and I'm working on their albums.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
It's like the cobbler's kids are the ones that go without shoes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what characteristics do you see in your kids now that came from your parents?
Oh, my goodness. My older son, Levi, is a jokester.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he gets that from my father. He likes to see reactions and things like that. Oof. Well, Gus is only 14 months, so we're just starting to see a little personality come out in him.
Yeah.
But he's so sweet and loving. It really does. Motherhood has really opened my eyes and allowed me to feel my parents in a different way again. Yes. And that, I feel them with me, and I'm so lucky. Because if I can't have them here, I can still have them here.
Yes.
So it's a process.
Yes. Nancy, and we are so lucky that we were able to have you here. Thank you so much for
Oh my
being
gosh,
here today.
thank you so much. This was such a wonderful experience.
Thank you. Everybody, Nancy. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. I've gone through 23 tissues already, you guys. I don't know about you, but this is so beautiful, what we have felt today. But we have one more day. The adventure doesn't stop here. Join us bright and early tomorrow morning. We're going to have so much fun. The Family Search Global Forum starts at 9:30 a.m., followed by our closing general session. I can't see what I'm supposed to say because I have too many tears. I apologize. We've got even more incredible tales of discovery that are lined up just for you. And don't wait until then to dive in. You need to explore the great classes. I can see some of you leaving right now. Get into those classes and discover the expo hall. Enjoy all of the activities happening right here at the Salt Palace or online at rootstech.org. And young adults, if you're 18 to 31, make sure you join us back here tonight at the Salt Palace at 7 p.m. because it's time for our second annual RootsTech after party. We've got live music, games, food, and vendors, and even a chance to get involved and make a difference with the Family History Service Project. Trust me, it's going to be amazing. I'll see you all again tomorrow, bright and early. Thank you. Be kind to each other and lift each other up. Thank you.
Everything I think about, how could I ever live without the way you look at me, and everything would be okay.
Hi everybody, I'm Kirby, and today I'm excited to take you on a tour of one of the highlights of RootsTech 2024, the Family Search Booth. Whether you're exploring with us here on site or you're joining us online from anywhere around the globe, there are so many discoveries waiting for you at Family Search. Now let's talk about what's new at Family Search this year. They've introduced some amazing features, making your journey into family history more accessible and engaging. And if you need a help